There's always a next level. And one thing I personally always strive to be, I want to be the dumbest guy in the room, right? Because I believe, iron sharpens iron. And the more people I can surround myself with that are at a higher level than I am, the better I'm going to be faster.
Welcome to The Path to Wealth, the show about well-being, fulfillment, and financial freedom. And I'm your host, Hannes Henschel. Welcome back to The Path to Wealth. I'm your host, Hannes Henschel, and I'm excited to present an insightful interview with our guest today where we navigate the intersections of real estate, personal development, and holistic wealth. It's an honor to have Senate Eskridge to the show. He's a dynamic figure with expertise spanning management, real estate, multifamily coaching, and personal development. In this episode, we will delve into key topics shaping financial and personal well-being, exploring the art of diversifying portfolios through real estate and the benefits of multifamily investing. Welcome to the show, Senate.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here. I'm looking forward to this conversation for a while.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit more about where did your interest in personal development and kind of not only in the financial sense, but compounding good habits, good actions. Where did all of that start for you?
Wow. I love that question. I haven't been asked that before. I would say it all started, interesting. Now that you ask it, I had to think about a different answer. So I started off in network marketing way back, 20 years ago, 25 years ago, almost actually. I was very, very young person. And I was introduced to personal development through this network marketing company. And there were actually 3 different products that this company sold. Number 1 was a travel product. And then number 2 was a personal development package. It was clear back. I mean, it was on, we had VHS tapes and maybe a couple of CDs here and there, right?
That was already the new stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then the third package was like a personal development retreat you'd go to, and it would be all of this stuff. And so as you progressed and got better and better, you got more and more exposure into personal development. That's really where it started. And I got so many lessons about self-improvement and financial improvement and getting better. And really what it did is it opened my mind and it stretched my mind and it made me realize that I could have anything I wanted to achieve if I just put my mind to it and focused on it. And I truly believed that as a young person. And I really attribute all of my desire for personal development back to that one experience working with that company. Now, it didn't really matter if I made money with them or not. It was the exposure to that personal development and that focus on self-improvement.
That's very interesting. I think a lot of people had exposure to network marketing, multi-level marketing at some point, but few people are willing to admit it. But
yeah, I'm not afraid at all to admit it. I thought it was one of the greatest teaching experiences I've ever had. I learned a lot.
Yeah. I actually had some exposure myself. And I love the component, like the mentoring component about it. And I do think that the particular group I was exposed to, they had a real value proposition for people who didn't have access or didn't have money to generate access to a different kind of mentorship or something, So for someone who had nothing to lose in that sense or had everything to gain, I think it was an amazing ecosystem because they gave them a vehicle and also put themselves out before they had to write the check in that sense. So if somebody showed up and was willing to work, they could very much change their circumstances. And I would say that the kind of books that they exposed me to or had me read were definitely the same kind of books I would read today.
Totally agree.
So I do appreciate all of that. And I do think about, for example, communication was a big one that we focused on. I'm such a more open communicator today than I was at first. And I would say that's part of that. So I had a similar experience to you, and I wonder then, how did they turn into your real estate journey? How long did you maybe stick with that group, for example?
There's really not a connection there. I was with that group for maybe two years or less, and I made some decent money with them. But then, like with a lot of those kinds of groups, it changed and fell apart, and it didn't quite work. It didn't last. And I would say that's the big
Yeah.
negative with those types of groups is there's not very many of them that can last long term. So anyway, that fell apart, and it was years later after several other personal development and entrepreneurial journeys that I've went through where I found real estate. And so it was I found real estate just after 2008. So again, there's not really a connection between the two.
Yeah.
I always knew that I wanted to be in real estate. I just never really knew how. And in 2008, I got into it because I had a house I couldn't sell. It was right after the crash. Nobody wanted to buy this house, but I had to move. And so what do you do with a house you can't sell? You rent it out. And so that's really where it started, was with one single family rental. And again, changed the mindset. I can do this now. I did it small. I can do it. Now let's go big after that.
So, what was your journey into multifamily like? You started with one, but how did you get to many?
Yeah.
What was the mindset that had to maybe shift, the learning lessons you had to go through?
Yeah. Well, I stayed in single family for a while. And when I say single family, I consider anything under 5 units single family. So duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes. And I stayed in that for quite a while, like 10 years. And I was doing a lot of different things in that realm, buying and selling single families, doing fix and flips. I did the BRRRR strategy, which is a unique thing we can talk about if you want. But I even did a couple of accidental wholesales. I was never an agent, never a real estate agent, and never a wholesaler. Literally buying and selling deals. I've done over 100 real estate transactions. I've actually done more transactions than several realtors in our area, right? There's actual people who get a license that I've done more deals than they have.
By accident.
Yeah, exactly. and see, I just was doing that as kind of a side thing. I loved doing it. I really enjoyed real estate. But I had a business. I was a financial advisor. I help people with stocks, bonds, mutual funds, all that kind of stuff as a financial advisor. And then neither one of those things come with benefits. So I also had a full-time job, a W-2 job, where I sold IT services. And I did that, mainly for the benefits and those type of things, for health insurance and those things for my family, because I've got 5 amazing children and a beautiful wife that I needed to take care of. So in 2019, I had this full-time job plus my financial advising business. And then I had all of these rental properties, these single family rentals. So essentially I had built myself 3 jobs, and I knew I had to do something different. And the different was, it's time to scale up. And it was this, I had this aha moment. I listened to some podcast that had an ad about a conference. I went to like one of those 2-day free boot camp things where they try to sell you this big program. And I was like, well, I didn't buy their program. I was like, man, I can do everything they can do. Why can't I do that? And that's really where the aha moment happened. So I spent all of 2019 researching every aspect of commercial real estate I could find, reading every book, listening to every podcast, watching every YouTube video. And every moment of my free time was spent learning. And in 2020, I decided to start selling all of my single family houses and moving them into multifamily. But I also knew I couldn't do it on my own. So I joined a mentorship group. I quickly outgrew that mentorship group. And then I joined a second mentorship group. And I went through that process and dove into their information and used their knowledge to help me leverage the cash that I had from my single families and roll it into multifamily. I later became a coach with that group, where I actually teach people how to buy real estate and multifamily. And I've been coaching now since 2021, teaching people how to do what it is that I do.
So what do you teach them at the moment where things are very rocky? landscape has vastly shifted since when you first entered the arena, and you actually had dry powder when it was, I would say, it's still a pretty decent time to buy. And how do you address newbies now that are willing to get into the market, but are at the same time scared because, there's so many different headlines that tell them different things, and crash is supposed to come, interest rates, inflation, all of those different hurdles. How do you help somebody navigate through that?
Well, so I've got two different types of people I talk to. First of all, people that want to invest money, right? And I know that's not who you're talking about, but that's a whole different conversation. And then I have people that want to become an active general partner, right? They actually want to go out there and buy deals. And so let's focus on those people first. And when I talk to those people, I find two different schools of thought, right? And I teach them both the same type of thing, right? The answer is the same. But over here, in this camp, you've got people that say, I'm gung-ho. I want to buy every deal, every piece of real estate I can possibly find, right? Kind of almost reckless. And then you got people over here that are like, the market's garbage right now. I can't find a deal. And my answer is to both of them exactly the same. Okay. So first of all, you have to remember that no deal's better than a bad deal. And it's just a numbers game. You need to be patient. I teach 100-to-1 rule. You need to underwrite 100 deals before you buy one. And it breaks down like this. You should offer on 1 out of 10 deals that you underwrite. Okay, so if you underwrite 100 deals, you should be able to offer on 10. And then you should expect 3 out of those 10 to get accepted. If you're getting more than 3 out of 10 accepted, you're paying too much money. And only one of those 3 should actually close, right? Because you're going to get in there and you're going to find something in due diligence. You're going to find a problem. You're going to find, that there was a foundation issue or a water issue, something that you didn't know that there's no way you could see from the outside. So I teach both of those groups, people who are gung-ho, want to buy everything, and people who can't buy anything. You got to go through 100 deals before you buy one.
I would say that already kind of separates the doers from the ones that are true hustlers. To get through 100 underwritten deals, I would say that probably sets apart a certain segment of people.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so many people that have unrealistic expectations when they come into an opportunity. And that really does separate, like you said, the tire kickers from the doers.
Yeah, tire kickers is a good one. Yeah. So you said something really important earlier. When you were sitting there on that free kind of seminar, which was supposed to roll you on in the bigger paid program, you realized everything that they could do, you can do. And I think those are such important moments in life because it's in here, it's between our ears where we lose most opportunities because we don't think big enough. And we might already have the skill set, we might already have the context, but we don't yet have the understanding to connect the dots, or, we simply don't think of ourselves as maybe the person that we then saw on stage. And we're like, wait, if this guy can do it, I can do it. So what was that moment like for you, and how did that propel you forward in your journey?
Yeah, the one thing that I've never really had a problem with was belief in my own abilities. And maybe I'm lucky, right, in that. And that I've always known that if I really tried to do anything, I could figure it out. And I really wish that there was a way to get people to realize that right off the bat, because I'm not anything special. Let's be real. Like I put my pants on just like anybody else, right? I also have flaws like everybody else. I mean, my wife would tell you, like, I am far from perfect. But I've always had that strong belief that if I took the time and put in the effort, I could learn how to do anything in the world. And so that moment I was sitting there and I thought to myself, This guy told me he just bought 1,000 units in multifamily, like last month. And he told us all about the deals. I guess it was in the last year. Anyway, he told us about the 3 deals that he bought that were all in the 300 unit size. And I'd met him beforehand. I shook his hand, and he was just a normal human being. And he told the story about, like, he didn't come from money. He didn't have rich parents. He was trying to sell the story that I can do it too. But I also knew that I didn't need to pay him tons and tons of money, right, to be able to figure it out. So I went and figured it out. Just did it.
Yeah. But you do see the value of mentorship. You just felt that in that particular scenario that he couldn't teach you enough of what you didn't already know, or you could figure it out by yourself anyway.
Yeah. So I hope I didn't come across as not valuing mentorship, because I absolutely...
No, I just wanted to reassure that you do, because you did say that you went into 2 different mentorship groups and you're also coaching in one.
Yes, I absolutely am a huge fan of mentorship group. In fact, if you want to be successful in something, the first thing you should do is find a mentor that has been where you want to be, and then pay them lots of money to get there, right? Get there faster. Highly recommend that. Okay. This guy I went to see wasn't that guy. This guy he wasn't a good mentor. He was a salesman, and that's all he was a salesman. And there's a big difference out there between someone who is actually walking the walk and someone who is selling you on a program. Okay. So when you're looking at a mentor, that's really what you need to look for, is someone who has been there and knows exactly where you want to go, and then can help you get there. That's the most important thing. And a good mentor is worth... Most of these mentors don't charge enough. Let's just be clear, right? They should charge 10 times what they charge, because they're worth 10 times what they're going to give you. Right. So
yeah, I remember originally when I had to wrap my head around those kind of fees in those mentorship programs. They were, simply put, if they just turn you away from one bad deal, like you said, no deal is better than a bad deal. All the money is well invested. Like that in itself, not buying the bad deal.
Yep.
And that's before they help you buy the good deal. And then it pays off in a completely different way. And then also, one of the things I always learned is you only get out of things what you put in. Like, if you go into a mentorship relationship, you have to be willing to put in the work. And I think I continue to see people excel who are willing to put in the work, who make use of the material. And like you said, you outgrow the relationship or that particular mentor group. And there's always a next level. And if there's not a next level, the beauty is you can create it.
Oh, yeah. That's a good point.
Like if you really like, okay, what's next here? Then you can bring your peer group together and create something that will help somebody else take the next step in their journey, who is looking for the next elevation from where they're coming.
Yeah, I totally agree. There's always a next level. And one thing I personally always strive to be, I want to be the dumbest guy in the room, right? Because I believe, iron sharpens iron. And the more people I can surround myself with that are at a higher level than I am, the better I'm going to be faster. So Definitely agree with that. I want to reiterate something you said just a second ago, though, about mentorship groups. And I know, and I don't want to beat up on this too much, right? But
it's okay, go for it.
You talked about the things that they can save you and the value they're going to give you. I actually I've made several mistakes in real estate that have cost me $5,000, some that have cost me $10,000, a few that have cost me $20,000. I would say that if I added up all the mistakes I've ever made in real estate, probably $250,000 of mistakes. And if I had a mentor holding my hand, teaching me, guiding me on each one of those things, I would have not made those mistakes. That value is huge. The second thing about that is about the time that I spent. See, I spent so much time learning, clear back in the single family space. And then when I actually decided to move into commercial, I spent probably, I don't want to exaggerate, but well into the thousands of hours just studying and learning. And if I had a mentor that sped up that time, can you imagine what's your time worth, right? Just take your hourly wage and take the amount of time I spent learning and multiply it by your hourly wage, right? That probably would pay for a mentorship group. And then what about the acceleration? And if I went back in time, and of course everybody wants to be able to do that, right? But if I could go back in time to 2008 and have the mentors and the knowledge that I have today, I can't imagine where I'd be today.
Yeah, you would have participated in an amazing decade in commercial real estate.
Yeah, and instead I was playing in the single family space.
You know what you just said brought to mind another quote, which is, if you think a professional is expensive or hiring a professional, try hiring an amateur. And that's like, again, the time and the effort you have to put in to somebody who doesn't know what to do to get them to do that, compared to hiring a professional that might cost you 3-4 times, whatever much, but they can generate so much more headache-free value for you. But it's also a different mindset. One, to do that for a mentor and actually be like, okay, I'm paying top dollars, but I also understand I'm not making those $250,000 of mistakes. And the second is, we don't have to do or know everything ourselves completely in order for it to be executed at the highest level. We can work with professionals. And sometimes the fees that come with those professionals, whether they're accountants or lawyers, they look like, like you get a little bit of a shock moment there. But the reality is, working with them will save you so many headaches, and they will execute from their point of experience rather than us trying to figure it out, kind of winging it the way we might have done it in the past.
Yeah. Wow. I love that quote. I'm going to have to remember that one.
Yeah, and it really hit home. I remember I saw it on somebody posted it, and it was right around when I started working with a couple people, for example, as simple as building websites. And then of course, at first I thought I can just do it myself, which was, then after 5 hours in, I'm like, okay, this is not for me. Then I figured, maybe I can just hire someone who can put it together for me. But then I realized, if you just give it to a professional, all you have to do is cue them on what you want, and it will get done. But anywhere in between, you're just creating yourself another task. And I get it, in the beginning, you might have to bootstrap things a little bit. You have to be more cost conscious. But yeah. I would say it's better to work with professionals sooner than later, because it allows you to free up your time and create more value.
Yeah. I love that. Love it.
So what would you say was another important step on your journey where you had such an aha moment, where like, oh, this is how I scale. This is what leverage means. This is how I can, again, move away from those 3 different jobs that I had to work to, sustain my family and actually thrive and take it to a different level for my family.
Well, I would say the biggest shift for me in real estate was when, it's funny, I run into problems, and that's when I find a solution, right? And school of hard knocks, I guess. But I sold a bunch of my single families. I mentioned that, and you used the term, I had dry powder, right? But I realized very quickly that I was going to run out of money, right? Because I just bought a building. I bought a building in Round Rock, Texas, that was $7 million. I don't have a lot of that just laying around. So I had to figure out a way to be able to fund these deals. And so in came another opportunity for more mentorship. I actually joined another mentorship group that specialized on setting up syndications and helping people pool people's money together, right? Which is one of the most beautiful things that I've ever seen. So I had all the skills to be able to buy apartment buildings and other multifamily complexes, right? Which is what I was doing. As I say, I buy apartment buildings and complexes, and I turn them into communities. That's what I do, right? And so I had those skills, but I didn't have enough money to be able to continue doing it. So I joined this other mentorship group that taught me the skills that I needed to go out and speak with people who didn't want to put in the hard work, they didn't want to put in the sweat equity. They just wanted to invest passively. And this was that aha moment for me, is I can now help people. I can now help people in three ways. Number one, I can help improve the community in which I'm working. Okay, because I kind of buy, I don't buy really like bad assets, but I kind of buy things that are not really nice, and I fix them up and I make them better. So I can improve the community in which I'm working. And then I can also help the people who live there. I can take the place that they live, the complex they live in, or the apartment that they live in. They're just tenants. They're just living there. And I can now transform that into a community where they become a resident and they can be proud of this place that they live. And so now I can help the residents of our communities, right? Be proud. And then third, I can now help these people invest, my partners invest in this without doing any of the work, without taking all of the time to go through all those schools of hard knocks we just talked about and pay for mentors and, make the mistakes that I've made and all that kind of stuff. They can now just invest with someone like me, and I'll go do all the work and they get amazing returns. So I get to help people in three ways. And I do believe that the more value you provide, the more handsomely you're rewarded, right? So I can provide a ton of value and then I get paid for doing it.
Yeah. And that's also one of the things that attracted me to this particular space is it's a very giving ecosystem, I would say, where people uplift each other, and at the same time where multiple parties can win together. Like the seller doesn't necessarily need to lose in order for us as a buyer to get into a good position to win.
Yeah.
And neither do the tenants or everybody else. Everybody can win in this scenario.
Absolutely. It's one of the few instances where it can truly be a win-win-win and everybody can be happy. Totally agree.
Yeah.
And I've been in situations where it's not that, and I didn't like it. So that's why I like this one even more.
I actually did just, what kind of instances, what kind of maybe businesses are you referring to? Because that's something that always in the core of my, I don't know, my intuition or something. If something like that doesn't feel right, I just can't do it. Like I'm not the guy who puts on the face and like, no matter what, I'll sell this or I'll do it like this. If it doesn't feel like the right thing to do in that regard, where other parties can win with me, I just can't participate.
Yeah. Well, I can give you several examples, and I'll name two or three here. But before I found real estate, I actually bounced around a lot trying to figure out where I fit and where I was. My entrepreneurial journey should be, right? So I actually sold, I was a telemarketer for a while, and I was selling basically anything that I could find to anyone that would buy it. And so, I sold duct tape, for example, right? And it was literally, I wanted to buy the cheapest duct tape I could find, and I would sell it to the person that would pay me for it, and I would get the most amount of money for it. And it didn't last very long for me because every day I went home and I felt kind of shady and slimy. I was also a freight broker for a while. So you see all these semis running up and down the road, trucks.
Yeah.
Well, if they're running empty, they're not making any money, right?
Yeah.
So, and then you've got all these shippers that have freight, right? And so what I would do is I would take the shipper and the truck and I would match them up. And I would take a piece out of the middle. I did that for a while. And the bigger piece I could get, the more money I would make, right? So I wanted the truck, who was empty anyway, to take it to pay them as little as possible. And the shipper, I wanted to get them to pay me as much as possible, Yeah. And here's the problem. Both groups hated me, right? Because the truckers thought I was stealing from them and the shippers thought I was stealing from them. So literally every single day I would hate my job. And so again, I didn't do that very long, because it just didn't feel good. And I, like you, I want to make sure that it's a win-win for everybody and that I feel good about what I do, and I want to help people. And so, and that's again why this is what I do now is such a great fit, because I can help people in three ways, like I said earlier. And then when I do my coaching, I still do coaching. I help people, right? I'm one of those mentors we talked about earlier. And I can now help those people that I'm mentoring and coaching. I can help improve their life. I can help improve their mindset. And I know that they're doing good on the other end, right? Because I'm teaching someone to go out and help people in three ways, right? So it's like a ripple effect. Me helping this one person is going to help all these other people.
And one of the things that's kind of part of my personal line of thought on that is, I think the biggest fruits out of my presence will be actually something that I teach to somebody who will really do something magnificent. That's the beauty of being a teacher, sharing what you know. You have no idea what that seed turns into. It could be an entire orchard, it could be, and that's the beauty of being a mentor, a teacher, or, just stepping into the public domain and sharing and teaching. Because there's so many different ways in which this can flow back. And I think it's a very beautiful space to spend time in, because it's very rewarding.
Yeah, I agree. Sitting back and just seeing those fruits of what I pour into somebody. Like you said, you plant a seed in them and then it grows into something amazing. And of course, I can't take credit for their actions, but I also know that if I hadn't planted a seed in them, they would have not taken those actions. Now, maybe they would have taken other actions, right? And maybe they would have found another mentor that if somebody else would have planted a good seed, right, in them, then they would have done something good with that, right? But I know that this was my seed and that they took the knowledge that I gave them and did something amazing with it. And it feels so good. In fact, it's almost selfish, right? Like I've talked about this before. Like I get a rush out of teaching people things because I know what it's going to do for me down the road.
Yeah. And that's, I think this is the most beautiful combination, where you're doing something that's intrinsically valuable to someone else, but you also get rewarded. And I've heard many, many teachers say the same thing. They're like, I actually love to do this. So by you allowing me to teach you, we both get something out of this. And many teachers feel like they're maybe getting the better share of it because of how amazing it makes them feel.
Yeah. I think that's spot on. There's a specific scenario that happened actually fairly recently, maybe within the last 2 months. I had a class that I was going to teach, a group class. There's about 25 or 30 people on it. And I was just kind of down that day. I really wasn't feeling very good. My headspace wasn't in the right place. And I taught about elevator pitches. Pretty simple. What do you do? Like if you're going to get on an elevator and you're going to explain to someone what you do in less than a minute, how are you going to do it? And I gave a little 5-minute spiel about what it should look like. And then we went around the room and all of the people on this Zoom call, it was a Zoom call, gave an example. And then I taught on it. I said, okay, well, here's how I would improve that. And then the next one did even better. And I improved that. And every single time it got better and better. So I got immediate rewards, right, from watching my progress. And the last 5 or 6 were just so amazing. Better than I was, quite frankly, right? The student surpassed the teacher, which is always a teacher's goal. And by the time I got off of that thing, I could walk on water. I just felt so amazing. And so I truly believe that I got as much, if not more, out of it than the students did.
Yeah. And I think this is where life gets really, really juicy. And this ties actually right into one of my favorite questions is, what do you consider a life well lived?
Life well lived. Well, I would say a couple of different answers that have to fill into this. So number one, do everything that you possibly can do with every moment of your life, right? And what I mean by that is I work really, really hard, but then I play really, really hard, but then I rest really, really hard. One of my core values is to play full out or to maximize every minute of every day. To coin a term that someone else has used, I want to squeeze all the juice out of life. Okay? Don't half-ass anything. And then number two, the second piece of that that goes right in line with it is, figure out what only you can do that you can do better than anyone else. And then do that to the best of your ability and put a dent in the universe with it. Figure out what you can do and play full out and make sure and leave your mark. Put your dent in the universe.
I always think it's a little bit interesting when somebody says to put a dent in the universe, because I literally picture the James Webb kind of images, and then I picture how tiny, tiny, tiny the solar system is and how tiny Earth is in that. So,
Exactly.
but everything else, I think is spot on. You know, I find that middle space where you don't go and actually commit yourself to something one of the most uncomfortable spaces in my life. You know, when I work on something, when I create something, I'm perfectly fine with it. When I'm actually just in that restful space where you're like, you know, when you relax, you do relax. Or when you sit with a family member, you really sit there. Mm-hmm. I'm perfectly fine with it. But like this idea of just like having this chill attitude and just like, yeah, let's see how it goes. It's one of the most uncomfortable spaces for me.
Yeah, I think I understand what you're saying. I don't know that I can appreciate that chill attitude either, right? I think you need to have an intention with your time, a purpose, no matter what that is. If that's relaxing with your family member, right? Be purposeful about that. And when if you're just like drifting, I mean, could you imagine drifting and what that is? Could literally, like, what if you were in a raft in the middle of the ocean, just drifting, and you never know where you're going to go?
Yeah.
What kind of life is that, right? But if you're in a canoe or a kayak, maybe is a better analogy, and you're paddling for the island, you know where you're going to go. You're trying to get back to the ship, if that's what it is. You're trying to get to the shore. You have somewhere you're going, right? You're going to get a lot better results if you have an intention in what it is that you're going to do. And that intention could be your health. It could be a relationship with somebody. It could be resting. It could be meditation, right? But don't ever drift.
So how did you get to what you mentioned, being intrinsically good at something, finding that? What was that journey like for you? How did you get there? What kind of tools, maybe books or otherwise, helped you to get there?
Yeah, that's a tough question. I think that if you really ask yourself, you'll know the pieces that you're not good at and the pieces that you probably are good at, right? So we know people that are artists. We know people that are chefs, right? We know people that can do different things just kind of naturally. And I think that that's really where we need to focus. I'm a really big believer in leaning into your strengths. And this is not easy for us because, we're trained in school to not do this. Think about what happens, like go back to like high school or even grade school, something like that. You come home and you have your report card and you've got, 3 A's and 2 C's. And I don't know how many subjects you learned, but let's just go with 5. Which subjects will your parents focus on?
The C's.
Right, the C's. But what happens in business, right? If you're really good at communicating and sales and maybe being in the public eye, and you suck at spreadsheets, what does your boss focus on?
Yeah, he's gonna put you where you're best.
Right. And I think that that's something that we need to be good at and recognize in ourselves is we don't have to be good at everything. Okay. I can't spell, right? And I'm writing a book right now. It's a nightmare. But I've got this awesome thing called spell check, and I've got people that I can give my book to proofread, and I've got all these things that I can use and all these tools that I can use. I don't have to be able to spell to write a book.
Yeah. You know what you just touched up on? Gary Vee really shifted my mindset on that. Gary Vee always is like, hey, I've never sat down to write a single one of my books, but I can speak it to somebody who can write it for me.
Yep.
And that like, oh, and it really shifted my mind around those things. I'm like, oh, I'm not a writer. Well, you can still narrate your knowledge. Somebody will structure it for you and put it in a book. You can still call it yours.
That's right.
And all of those things, it's again, it's mindset.
Yeah. And there's so many ways that you can do it, right? Actually, we could talk for a whole nother hour about this, but I believe there's a book in everyone, right? At least one. Probably for me, there's 5 or 6. I don't know yet. I haven't figured that out, but there is a book in everyone, and everyone should write a book. I truly, truly believe that. And you don't, like you said, you don't have to actually type it or physically write it. You can speak it. There's so many things you can do. So yeah, if you haven't written a book, you should do it.
Well, I spoke one.
Yeah.
Because
there you go.
I haven't. So it's like it's not published in the traditional sense, but we've published it. And what I really learned is that I was so amazed. Like I had my own aha moment after I did it, because I recorded it all, and then I gave it to one of my employees who is amazing at proofreading and structuring written content. And then I gave it to my designer, and they put it together. And this is something that I could have not done by myself. But again, you work with people who are good at it. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And you can put something together and you can put your knowledge into it. And I'm sure if we give it a second round, we can make it even better. And that particular book, it's for, highly skilled chefs who don't know how to monetize themselves well, and the journey on how to get private clients who in the United States tend to pay the highest price for their time and skills.
Wow.
So it's basically taking someone who's very skilled and low paid to a very good and well paid position. And that's the journey I put in the book, because it was my journey and I can speak to it.
That's amazing. Yeah. And there's so much value in that. And, I'm not a chef. I mean, I'm a decent cook, but I'm not a chef. But I'd still love to read a book like that, because I find so many lessons in those kinds of stories, right, that I can now take and put into my own life. So it's so great that you put that out there, and the amount of people that's going to impact. I'm just kudos to you. Well,
let's see. The key to books and impact is the distribution, not the writing. That's something that I've learned. And there are these crazy numbers. I will butcher it if I even try, but it's like a very, very small percentage of books that actually reach more than 5,000 people. And it's so much of it has to do with the distribution of it.
Yeah, you're not wrong. Yeah, if nobody knows you, you can't serve them, right?
Good one.
Actually, I've been listening to. I don't know if we should start plugging other names in here, but I've been listening to Alex Hermosi a lot lately. Like
I'm addicted. I'm waiting for the leads. Did you see the launch event of that?
I did. Yeah, I watched the launch event, and I'm right now listening to his audiobook. And in that audiobook, he actually tells this story about he was sitting there talking to a friend that's very wealthy that he knows. And this very wealthy person, he said to this wealthy person, how are you okay with everyone knowing who you are, not having any privacy and all this kind of stuff? And the wealthy person said, Alex, if the price that I have to pay to serve humanity is to have people recognize me, that's a low price for me to pay, right? And it was like this aha moment for Alex. It was, holy crap, I need to go build a brand, right? I need to go get known by people. And that just hit me like a ton of bricks, because that's exactly what I've been. I want to help people. I want to have an impact. I want to serve as many people as I possibly can. And I want to have a comfortable lifestyle. Like I don't need to be Bill Gates, right? But I want to be able to make enough money to be comfortable. But yet I've never really wanted to be famous, right? I've never really wanted to have a whole bunch of people know me. So that really hit me like a ton of bricks.
You see, one thing I realize is you can be well known enough to still have your own life, and you can be rich enough, or also if you flip it, you actually, if you're richer, you can serve more people. So both help you, and you don't. The beauty is you don't have to be like a celebrity in the TV sense of things, or in kind of the musician or a Hollywood kind of thing. But you can be well known and well connected enough to make a difference and pull a couple of strings, makes things happen, have that charity event where there's a couple of ballers in the room that can actually make a difference. Because the reality is money can shift things and money can help people. And we started with our families, you and me, we were focused like, hey, let's get to a place where we can scale something that serves our family. But once you get to that point, I actually think it's a natural progression. You take care of your family, then you start taking care of a larger group of people that you care for. You start being charitable, and naturally you will go out and out because you can. I think there's very few people who actually stop caring and giving if they have the ability, especially with the kind of heart and mindset that you and me share.
Agreed. You can serve a lot of people. The more money you have, the more you can serve. I agree.
Yeah, and the same is true for the more people you know, or actually more important, the more people that do know you and are willing to, kind of work with you or put something onto you. And I think that's where Alex is now moving into very powerful space. I mean, to see him grow and how he grows, and he's very intentional about it and genuine at the same time. And I mean, the way he dropped that Leeds offer, I thought it was very, because I was contemplating what kind of my pain point is to pay for it. And then he just dropped it like this for nothing. And it was like his big moment, it's like the biggest, how would you say that? To underline his authenticity. And really, he's thinking so long-term from a private equity play that he knows he will make it all in the long run.
Yeah. I too, I had a number in my head that I was ready. Like if it's below this number, I'm in. And it was below that number.
It was below that number, yeah. But it was so awesome because it really shows, and this is something that inspired me. It's the kind of Warren Buffett, and Alex is very inspired by Warren Buffett. Thinking is just do good and do right and build genuine relationships so you can shake somebody's hand and look them in the eye, and they will do business with you. That's a lot more valuable because you build a relationship for 30, 40, 50 years. And I think that's really how I would like to do it in the long run. Where people just by recognizing who I am in the space we're in and be like, I've seen him long enough. People have spoken about him well enough for decades. This is someone you can do a business handshake deal with, and it will be executed. Just do as you say, and a little bit better.
Yeah, I agree. Relationships are key. And the more good you do, the more relationships you're going to have.
Yeah, I agree. Well, Senate, this has been very, very heartfelt and inspiring. Where can people connect with you, or maybe even get mentored by you, be part of your future upcoming investments?
Yeah, the best place to find me is my website. It's just senateeskridge.com. I'm active on all the social medias out there as well, but if you go to senateeskridge.com, there's links to those social medias. You can book a call with me right on my website. I also have a free course that I give away right there on my website where you can go in and just get mentored from me, by me for free, right? Free course on my website, senateeskridge.com.
I like that. Adding value right out the gate. And we'll make sure to add all of your socials and, of course, the website link beyond the episode. So thank you so much for making the time.
Yeah.
Truly inspiring journey. And one of the things I love is you actually took the time tinkering till you found something you loved. And that's I think is a true wealth too in itself, to find something that you're very passionate about.
Thank you. I really enjoyed our chat. Thanks for having me. Maybe we can come back again and talk more about other stuff. It was good conversation. I really enjoyed it.
Awesome. Thank you for joining us at The Path to Wealth. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. Check out our upcoming guests and be sure to share it with all your friends and family that want to take their life to the next level of wealth.